The Morning Majority with Brian Neiman, Mary Catherine Ham, and Brian Wilson on 630.
WMAL.
7:37 on WMAL. Good Thursday morning to you. Full house. Ken Cuccinelli, Virginia's Attorney General, is in the studio with us as well. Joined now by Steve King, Republican from Iowa. You guys know each other, by the way?
Yes, indeed. You got one of the best ones there out of 535 on the line.
Mr. King, who is also
high praise.
The Defender of Liberty. That is the new nickname, as named by the American Conservative Union. Congressman King, good to talk to you again.
Good to be on. It's good to be connected again with Attorney General Cuccinelli and all the rest of you that are there. I wish I was in the studio. So I could...
Well, you know, the open invitation, you know you have that here.
We have an extra chair for you any day.
Well, I'm going to have to take you up on one of these mornings. That 4 a.m. delivery time is a little bit early.
I understand.
A little later.
Well, yeah, maybe we'll make an adjustment. You can come in at 7 o'clock. So House Republicans meeting with at the White House about the debt ceiling. Do you know anything about the meeting? Or did you go to that?
Yes, I did. I went to the meeting as most of the Republicans did. Not all, but a very, very high percentage did go. And sitting in the White House and watching the president conduct himself, I want to say this up front. He conducted himself well. His demeanor in a scenario like that is always good. And he deserves a little credit for that. I'm glad he met with us. That's all to his credit. And then we got into the meat of the discussion, and things, I'd say they went a little bit the other way.
Fell apart.
You know, I wouldn't say it quite fell apart, but there was a lot of discussion about the demagoguery, and it started out with the opening statements on our side and went on down the ranks a little ways, and the president came back and said that he's experienced that himself, and as someone who might have been born in America, he'd be happy to see a lowering of the demagoguery that's taken place. He said, I'm all for a reduction in demagoguery was actually the way he put it.
Right.
And so that was the tone of it. But I think it was important that we had the discussion about demagoguery, because that's what keeps America from coming together and getting the right things done. We knew when the proposal in our budget came out that it addressed the entitlements that they would be demagogue. They lifted it right off the pages of the previous times that Republicans have gone a step forward to touch the third rail that had to be touched. And then, of course, they just turn around and turn it back on you, and you ended up with a lot of conclusions. The American people have to decide that, and that, I guess, is the point.
All right, but are we any closer to progress where there may be some kind of deal on the debt ceiling limit?
I think one could make that case, not because of the discussion we had about agreements and how we agree. And it is true that the president said that there wasn't anything that he could propose that would get through our conference. And there was a grumble there from a member that said, "That's not true, sir." It wasn't Joe Wilson, and it was respectfully stated. But it's true that he could propose it, but he couldn't bring himself to propose the things that we would agree to. And so I think it's this, that there was...
Steve, Ken, isn't the first problem that he won't propose anything?
Yeah.
Well, yes, and that point was made to him very directly by Speaker Boehner. And he said, well, I did. I proposed $2 trillion in cuts and $1 trillion in revenue enhancements that come from closing tax loopholes. Well, I think that his proposal was rejected unanimously by the United States Senate. So that's no longer a serious consideration, Mr. President. Now, when you
the
go
Democrats
over 100, that's no longer a serious proposal.
Yeah.
Congressman King, Brian Wilson here. Good to have you on. I've just got to ask you, we just can't help but we can't turn away from the story of what's going on with Congressman Wiener. And I know that you all get together in the cloakroom or as you're standing around and waiting for the president to come in, and this conversation has got to come up. So what are people saying on Capitol Hill?
Well, truthfully, I think for the most part, we just kind of wish it'd go away.
Why?
It just makes all of us uncomfortable to have something like that going on. And I just, from my standpoint, I walked out of the House chambers yesterday into the Speaker's lobby where most of the press are, and there was a huge press gaggle. And before I even looked to see who was in the middle of that gaggle, I knew very well it wasn't a policy discussion, it was a media frenzy. And, of course, it was Anthony Weiner in the middle of that, adding less clarity to the situation.
Well, that's right. Are you surprised that he keeps talking about this?
I'm on the Judiciary Committee with him. I'm into the 9th year of serving with him, and we've gotten into some pretty much rapid-fire debates. And He does have great confidence in his ability to talk his way out of anything, but I don't know about photo evidence. That's a different story. And you can always track things that happen on the internet. This issue will be resolved. I'm confident of that. And if he's just told the truth about it all, that would make a lot of difference. But it seems to be evasive, and you wonder, is he actually gaming this? Does he have kind of a Blago wish inside that he's trying to follow here?
That's what I said. Just be audacious enough so that everybody's really entertained and it sort of turns in your favor eventually, at least in the short term. I have to say the Republican congressmen we've had on speaking about this have been kinder to him than I imagine Weiner would be to them.
Yeah, that's
there's that.
But you are completely right on that, and I'm among them.
I got to ask you, as somebody who's been in the House for a while, if it's not going to be Obama who leads on these budget issues, and I always assume it's not going to be Obama who leads when it comes to these tough things, do you know a Democrat who will? I mean, who's the guy who steps up, or woman?
Well, I can't imagine a Democrat leading on this with the president not leading.
Yeah.
That would in a way be an affront to the president, unless the president wanted to try to set up perhaps a senator who would be working on his behalf, so that the president wouldn't necessarily have his fingerprints directly on it. But I don't think that leadership is going to come. What I think will happen is, we checked the tone a little bit yesterday. The president convinced me that he is significantly apprehensive about being the president that might be presiding over perhaps the double-digit unemployment again, and seeing this economy start to spin downward again, and then hitting the debt ceiling and finding an economic calamity with our global credit ratings. All of that, I think he's very, very concerned about that, which means that he's more likely to accept some kind of a deal. That's my read out of it, but we have to get closer to the brink before anything is going to get done, because it's oil and water, and it's pretty hard to make that mix without, you got to have a lot of heat to make that happen.
Hey, Steve, this is Ken Cuccinelli again. I want to ask you about a nervousness factor, both on the debt limit discussion and on the Medicare discussion, particularly in light of the New York 26 race. And I want you to break it down into the freshmen and everybody else. What is the strength of will there in the caucus in staying the course on these two issues among first the freshmen and then everybody else?
Well, I'm not sure on the freshmen. It's really hard to read. 60% of them have not been in the legislature, in the state legislature before. So this is a completely new environment for them, and it's kind of hard to read what's going on. But we've got some good, solid conservatives in that class, and they're starting to take a hold and get more traction. I think, though, that generally across all of us, we know that the battle's been struck, the lines have been drawn, and we can't back up. We must go forward, and that means that we have to take this argument to the American people, and we've got to play offense with it. It's not good enough to explain away. Backing up playing defense is a certain way to lose. So I think the conference knows now, and I think it's pretty clear from what I've heard from them yesterday, that we've got to go forward and win this argument with the American people. It will be decided out there in the court of public opinion. It will be decided, and the score sheet will go up in November 2012.
All right.
I don't think that the Democrats can keep Medicare going for a year and a half. The subject will change.
All right, Congressman King, it's always great to have you on. Thanks very much, and we do like to see you in the studio sometime.
Let's set up and do that. I'd like to come up, and that'll be my commitment. We'll get her scheduled, and whatever time of the morning it needs to be.
We can push it off a little bit later for you. Thanks again. We'll talk to you soon.
Really good talking to you.